you all. It is absolutely my pleasure and honor to introduce you to Peggy Crea Dye, who is currently Opera Columbus's General and Artistic Director for the last year and a half, has been with them for 8 years. Being General and Artistic Director means you're producer, director, star, everything, okay? Nothing happens there without her looking it over and saying, it's okay, let's go forward. Now, she's performed in over 40 productions with major opera companies and orchestras throughout the world. She originated the role of Stella in A Streetcar Named Desire, written and conducted by Andre Previn at the San Francisco Opera, and reprised the role with the Pittsburgh Symphony and Washington National Opera. Other stages she has performed on include the Royal Opera House of Versailles, Shanghai Opera House, Glimmerglass Opera Festival, Utah Opera, Houston Grand Opera, and the Tulsa Opera. That's a way to go around the world and have someone pay you for it. Locally, she has performed with the Harmony Project, the Pro Musica Chamber Orchestra, the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, where I saw her, and she's done the national anthem, The Start of Pelotonia. Musical America just named Peggy as one of the 2018 Professionals of the Year as a part of their Movers and Shapers Special Edition. She is also a member of CCLC and participates in the Opera America Leadership Intensive Program. We have our own opera star right here in Columbus. Please give her a warm Columbus Rotary welcome, Peggy Crea Dye.
Good afternoon. I know I'm no doubt I'm one of the many opera singers that have spoken in front of the Rotary Club. Nonetheless, I'm very grateful to be asked to speak today a little bit about opera and what's happening here in Columbus. So as an opera singer, I am always asked, what was your favorite moment? What was the best place you ever got to sing? So I'm going to start with that. My favorite moment in my operatic career was at the Kennedy Center. It is a huge theater, huge stage if you've not been there. It is huge, yet the acoustics are perfect. You can whisper on that stage and be heard. And Andre Previn was in the pit, and the Washington National Opera Orchestra was there, and I was arguably with some of the best artists in the world. And when you're on stage, I was singing this aria about love and desire and pain, and there are thousands of people leaning in, so it felt, to hear what I had to say and allowing me to move them through music. And I've often been told, and I strongly believe, that the silences in music are the most powerful. And I took a long pause at one point, and I made eye contact with Maestro Previn, and I know we thought at that moment, this is magical what we get to do. This is phenomenal. Little did I know, that was not at all the extent that opera can make an impact in any community and in the world. So we're going to start in the middle. Take a look at this video.
The art school is arguably the greatest conservatory in the world. It's a school for advanced studies in performing arts, from undergrad, grad, and postgrad in some cases, in music, in drama, and in dance.
When Opera Columbus dissolved, it was a great opportunity to redefine what the company would be. And so in talking with other artistic directors and good friends of mine, the advice was, if you're going to be successful, you need to make it personal. And so for me, my passion was helping young singers. I tried to be a teacher and it was horrible. I was horrible. But this was a way, this was a way that I could do that. I thought, wow, I can really make a difference here. And so if I'm going to make emerging talent our focus, then of course Juilliard is the place to go.
we brought it to Juilliard for them to look over and figure out. And now we have this wonderful collaboration, which is unique as far as I know, in the music business at the moment. It's an immediate tie-in, where it involves an automatic offer from Opera Columbus for a significant role in Columbus for everyone who's in this program.
Look, stranger, at this island now, the leaping light fjord light discovers, stand stable here.
Part of the work that we do with Stephen is learning how to take what we do every day in class at Juilliard and then go into the job and put that on stage. So when I go to Opera Columbus next January to do the abduction of the Seraglio, I will have worked with Stephen on the role and with all of the coaches at Juilliard and have prepared it. And then, but really my work just begins once I get to Columbus. And then I'll start working with my director and my conductor and my cast, and we will start to create a production that has never been seen before of the abduction.
Sometimes getting in front of an audience is what gets you over the hump or gets you to the level where you're able to become more authentic and less afraid, or maybe your technique clicks in when the whole orchestra's there and the audience is there. So the hope is too that for everybody, actually being in the environment of a performance, a safe place, a safe performance, will help their development.
But it's also a professional credit, and in a reputable company, and in a beautiful theater with a wonderful acoustic. So, you know, tell me something that's wrong with that equation. It's just fantastic for us and for the kids there to have this sort of extension of the education, whether it's during the time they're here or at some point after.
But I'm excited because this is a piece that is not performed all that often, and I get to kind of sink my teeth into a role that I hope will become one of my signature roles in my career, at least for the first part of my career. So I'm really excited to kind of step away from the education world at Juilliard and school and work as a professional with Opera Columbus and do an opera. This is what I've spent however many years trying to train, and now I get to get on my feet and start doing it. So I'm just pumped, really excited.
For Columbus to be a location, to be the launching pad, everyone in that audience, everyone that contributes to this collaboration is a part of that. So we're creating the next generation of opera stars, and we have a huge part in that.
All right. Thank you to WOSU for creating that video, and it talks about a very strong part of the foundation of Opera Columbus. But now we're going backwards, so you can find out how we got there. I am from northern Minnesota, Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm sure you've all been. You know exactly where that is. I grew up in a non-musical artistic family, although we were connoisseurs of Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand. Other than that, we were not very musical. I have two sisters, one an accountant, another a nurse. My dad's an engineer, and my mom worked in medical records. So, of course, I would go to school to do a similar occupation to what we knew up in northern Minnesota. Needless to say, there was no opera up there. So I did fall in love with music, however, because Minnesota has an incredible choral programs everywhere. It's a choral state. And I had a wonderful experience in high school, although I was a bit rebellious at times as a student, but that's another luncheon. So I ended up going to college an hour away at St. Cloud State. That's right, St. Cloud State. You know, usually you say OSU and everybody freaks out. No one even knows where St. Cloud State. It's an hour from Brainerd. And I went there for music education and wanted to teach K through 12 music. I love kids. And then my senior year, there was a voice teacher who showed up with his family, and he happened to have an operatic background. He had spent some time in New York and done a few shows, and here he is at my college at St. Cloud. And his name was Dr. Hugh Givens, and I thought, how fun and novel to take voice lessons from an opera singer, so I'm gonna do that. And I did that for a year, and I experimented with my voice a lot, and he said, you know, you might have something here. Why don't you just go away for the summer, see if you get in a program, and then you can come back and student teach and do it, but you should just see. So I went to Chicago with my mom, my first venture out, and auditioned for Chautauqua Opera into one of their studio programs, and got in. So there I am at the summer. I drove my little car out to Chautauqua in upstate New York, and met a very famous, still today, voice teacher, Marlena Mollis. She still has the top floor of the Rose Building at Juilliard School. And she goes there every summer, and I was able to sing for her. I did, and she said, I want to teach you. So I go to New York, parents in complete disarray, and I was allowed to go for a weekend to audition. We could afford for me to go by myself. So I went out there, I auditioned, and following that, I ended up, you know, a lot probably because of Marlena, but I ended up getting a full scholarship at Manhattan School of Music to study opera with her. And needless to say, I was a tad behind the rest and worked very hard. What I loved about opera was the challenge. I felt like it seemed to me the most difficult music to sing. The hardest, the most challenging technically vocal acrobats you could possibly do. So I wanted to be great at that. And I love the drama of opera. I love the storytelling. And, you know, opera is really just one tiny step away from screaming. It's controlled screaming. It really is. So you can get a lot of attention. And if you know how to take that kind of volume and power and tell stories with it, opera is just an incredible art form for that reason. Then I was invited over to the Juilliard School. Well, first let me say, at Manhattan School, the gentleman that was in the video was my teacher. He was my drama teacher back then in 1993, I think. And so I studied with him and ended up getting invited to the Juilliard Opera Center, which is now called something else. But basically what that is, it's a group of 9 artists, postgraduate. They're from all over the world. If you're chosen, it's a 2-year program. You do leading roles at Juilliard. During that time, I made my Carnegie Hall debut. You're doing a role for the first time in a language you might not have sang in before, and you're getting reviewed by the New York Times. You're wandering through the Met to have a coaching, and you're passing by people whose recordings you have, you know, in the library that you're expected to study. And I was in this environment that was, nothing can prepare you for that. And I was very young at the time, and I was extremely overwhelmed because there's no way to experiment without it being public. And I mention this because that has a lot to do with why we went back to Juilliard as a company. So after that, I was invited to San Francisco Opera, was an apprentice, found an agent, and sang for the next 20 plus years. And during that time, I was very focused on my career, myself. It's very insular being a performer. And especially in opera, you don't stay in one place with one company. You go from company to company to company because opera singers specialize. So you have to go where the shows are being produced. So you travel everywhere. And you're alone a lot. And you're focused on yourself a lot, which you need to do to be good at your craft. And there came a point where I was like, what is the point of this, personally? What kind of impact is this even making? So many people disregard the arts as fluff or extra or STEM instead of STEAM. It's easily dismissed. And I have to say, I was struggling with these very thoughts myself. And one performance really helped me think differently. I was in Versailles. I flew in the morning after the Paris attacks. And, I mean, just hours before, really. And I flew in after sitting on a tarmac for I don't know how many hours. And this city was empty. I love Paris. I've been there many times, and I didn't recognize this place. And I was going there to sing a role, the leading role. It was a Muslim princess who was in a forbidden love affair with a French warrior and was defeated by him, I should say. So, not the best theme for that time, and I was the first it was drama. I was the first American to sing French Baroque opera in Versailles, let alone singing a Muslim princess. So we had to sign waivers right and left. Everybody came, everybody made it. And the day of the performance, the opening night, there were speeches from the president of Versailles and the general director of our company and other dignitaries. The audience was packed. Every person was there. And to this day, I'm like the brave audience that showed out. It was a way for someone like you and me to show defiance, I suppose. And as the opera began, the speeches finished, and then the whole audience had a moment of silence, actually 3 minutes of silence, which is very long. And it was completely silent, except for hearing people cry backstage and in the audience and in the orchestra. Then we sang the French national anthem. And then the show began, and I had to walk out on stage right off the top. And what I learned after that performance, there was a standing ovation, and what often happens in Europe is they stomp their feet and they clap in rhythm like we do at sporting events. And that was happening. We had bow after bow after bow after bow and flowers, and it went on and on and on. And what I realized at that moment was my job was so important. The arts were so important at that time because my job, after all those years of inward focus, was to use that craft to help people grieve, to give people a venue to feel defiant, to be able to stand up and say, I get to live my life how I want, take them on a journey in the storytelling. And it was an incredible experience. Then I ended up moving to Columbus. And I'm a mom of 2 kids, so I'm home with my kids. Then I go to the airport, be an opera singer, and then I'm home with my kids, go to the airport. So I wasn't quite involved in anything here until the opera dissolved here. And Bill Connor, some of you may know, who's since deceased, but at that time he was leading CAPA, Columbus Association for the Performing Arts, and he had taken in the symphony and a theater company and the opera and let go of the staff, the artistic season. Everybody was gone except for the grant writer, which was very wise because she's fantastic. And in order to keep the season going, they brought in shows from other companies, much like CAPA does the Broadway series. And the first show they brought in was from Toronto, and I was hired by the company in Toronto to sing in Columbus. And I'm like, you guys aren't going to believe this. I actually live in Columbus. So I meet Bill Connor. I perform here. I meet Bill Connor, and he says, help me rebuild this. That was about 8 years ago. And we started, I started with the education program, of which we had 5 schools that we were involved with. And now the educational program has over 50 schools and reaches over 13,000 children in the Columbus area. And we moved on to where we started producing operas. And now we're up to next season producing 4 operas of our own. And that's building everything here in Columbus, originating the ideas and generating them here in Columbus, and we have since toured to Toronto and Banff and have been reviewed nationally. So the company has come such a long way. We have partnerships with the Ohio State University, with Capital University, with the Juilliard School, as you saw. And part of it, as we were building this, and I was asked to take a more leadership type role, of which I've had 5 roles, mind you. And when I became, about 3.5 years ago, I became the artistic director, and I wanted so bad for the company not just to sing songs with a budget that wasn't sufficient to mimic the Metropolitan Opera. I wanted so bad for the company to be powerful, or I didn't want to be a part of it. I had performed so many places that were uninspiring and uninvolved in the communities. And then, of course, there are the exceptions. So I wanted our company to be the exception, and so we took a good look at the mission of the company, and we decided it's about young talent, emerging artists, and it's about paving the way to what opera is going to be now and next, as opposed to imitating the past. And that we need to be involved with what's going on in the schools and the community, as much as we're involved with producing the shows. And so we set out to do that with the partnerships I've mentioned. We've also big on collaboration. We've worked with Ballet Met, Pro Musica. We're doing a collaboration with the Pizzuti Collection, the Jazz Arts Group, and I can go on and on. I think we have over 10 partnerships in the city. And opera's the great collaborator because we get to have orchestra, scenic design, costume design. One of our shows is next year is partnered with Fashion Week Columbus. We have digital display and film. We have a partnership with Gateway Theater. Let me tell you a little bit about where we're going as well. And I would like to start that with this new video that shows our new brand. Take a look. I love that video. So we're very different. Maybe the idea you have of opera or your experience with opera or inexperience with opera gives you an impression of something that we're not. You can come to the opera, you can wear jeans, you can wear a gown. I've seen it all, every show. I encourage people to whistle, clap, encourage the performers to have a very interactive experience with the audience, much like it happens in Europe, frankly. So it's not a sit in the dark, straightforward, don't talk to your neighbor and don't open your candy because you're going to irritate everyone. You can keep your phones on, dim your screens, but you can go ahead and be involved in social media. And that's not to disrespect or tradition of opera, not at all. But if we do not move forward and take everyone with us, the art form is irrelevant. And so we're doing that very thing. One of the shows, I have a couple of them on your tables that are coming up. In January 24th, Destiny Coleman, who is the Director of Education and Artistic Administration, has created this incredible program that culminates in this concert called The Journey. And it's a concert. she came to me and I said, "What's important to you?" And she said, "There's a community of people in Columbus that are incredible performers, that are part of this community, that never get a chance to get heard." And she said, "It's the African American community." And so I would like to do a concert that tells the journey of, is that my time? Are you gonna like put on the music and I'm not gonna do it? It tells the African American journey, tells that story, and it has local gospel choirs. It's got local African drumming groups. It's got the incubator program of young artists at the King Arts Complex. It's an incredible celebration of Columbus, community concert. Please check it out. Another thing that we have coming up is an opera called The Flood, which is kind of crazy as I look out these windows at this very river. So in 1913, there was the great flood of Columbus and devastated Franklinton, which if you go through Franklinton, there are still watermarks on walls there. And it's really shaped the city and the people in the city. And although I'm not from Columbus, as I talk about this, so many people have a story. You know, my grandmother was involved in that, or, you know, I grew up in the Bottoms, and I've just learned so much about the fabric of the city. And so the opera tells about the journey of this family that was affected and devastated by the flood in 1913, the next generation, and the next generation of Columbus residents that originated from that first family. So we talk about streets in Columbus, the history of Columbus. We address lots of different issues like mental health and trauma. And it's kind of cool because in the opera world now, Columbus is forever a part of that. And that's something that means a lot. We've got a lot of national attention, so I hope you'll join us in seeing that. So I can promise you, Opera Columbus has just getting started. So in closing, I just would like to thank you all for what you do in the community. I know so many of you, George Arnold in particular, who's on my board, are involved in the arts and give to the arts and participate. And I have to tell you, your dollar and your contribution in whatever fashion you give it goes so much farther than you realize. So I'd like to thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you again, Peggy. It was wonderful. I know you had everyone's attention. We weren't clomping our feet, but next time you come back, we'll make sure we're stomping for you. We did have the youngest future Rotarian, Lane, dancing when you had the song on the video, which was very good. I was on their board many, many years ago before they dissolved, and I really liked hearing your presentation today about making, with all due respect to the past, it's about the now and the future, and to move forward. Bring everyone with you. The last thing is we have response cards. And Peggy's not only a friend of mine, her friend's a good friend of mine, so please score her high. You know what? Maybe you could sing. No, just thank you so much for presenting today. Thank you.